Alright, let's see how you've solved this problem. Game piece count seems simple enough. You've got the declaration here. You start an account. You go the length of the container. So that's the container being the outer grid, so the thing holding the rows of game piece objects. So you're going the length of the container. And it's an array, so length is the correct. It's not an array list where we would use the size accessor method. And we are going through here and count. This will add up. Well, the thing that's at the grid is actually a game piece. So using grid, specifically giving the X and Y coordinates here, that would get you the game piece that's there. You can't add that to an integer because that's a different thing than an int. So this wouldn't work. What you're looking to see is if there is an actual game piece there. So in this game, not every location on the board will have a player or a game piece on that tile, and so we need to go through and see how many game pieces there are. However, what's there if there is no game piece? Well, we talked about references, and so if there is a game piece at this particular location, then it does not equal null, and null is a pointer. So all of these, because it'll be an array of game piece types that is uninstantiated, and so they're just null pointers. So each time as you go through here, you need a new if statement. And the new if statement will be if this particular location does not equal null, then count plus plus, and then return count. And so if it doesn't equal null, then there should be a piece there. And that condition will cost you 1 point. Oh, actually, I see you having that. You have that condition over here, but it's just in the wrong place. Is above. So yeah, you're doing the same thing. You're starting from the row that you were given, and you're using the fixed column parameter, and you're going up until, well, wait a tick, there is a row 0, so you need to include 0 here, so that way you check that as well. But you did this correctly. Yes. Then you were going to return that. That's great. Usually you need the little carrots here to put that there. But anyway, this works great. And if it's not null, then you add that object there. Right. So it's just the loop that you missed there. Okay. So part C, we will add random pieces here. We'll need to check that there are enough blank spaces, and we'll also need to make sure that we're adding to a blank space. So you do this great. We get the number of pieces. I don't know, do you need to pass the grid to that method? I didn't think you need to. So get game count doesn't actually take it because it's an instance variable. All of these methods have access to that same variable as a part of this grid, so you don't need to pass it a parameter. But get the current number of pieces on the grid plus the number that you're supposed to add, and is it less than the number of available pieces, assuming that there isn't any one that's longer. But I think that should work just fine. Well, where is R coming from? We just use 0. You take the first one, so that's the width times the height, and you'll get the number of spots. That's great. But this won't work, because what happens if you're doing this mostly right, I would add a parenthesis here and here, so that way you're turning the final result into an int and not this number right here, because it'll always turn, if you just intized math.random, it'll always be 0. And so the order of operations should favor you here. This should, I think, work cleanly. But just as a habit, I always put parentheses around that, because too many times I've turned math.random into a 0 before I was able to use it elsewhere. But if you do pick a random location on this grid that doesn't equal null, then you've lost that attempt, and you're only going a fixed number of tries. You're not continually... this would work maybe if you did else x minus minus, so that way it goes down. And so x will only go up if you found the place. So you could do else x minus minus in order so you don't just burn find all occupied spaces and never get to add any that you were told to add. So that's no good. The other alternative, and we just need to practice this more in class, is while loops. And so start a count and then just drop the count every time. So number is the count. So while number is greater than 0, I draw a random number, and if it's there, drop the game piece. Oh wait, no, equals is a comparison thing. You just actually use an equal sign, and you need to equals new game piece parentheses. So you would need to use the equal sign, and then use the new operator to instantiate a new game piece at that location, and then you would do number minus minus, and then it would keep on going until that while loop found enough random spots that that number was while number is greater than 0, and then you could return true. That's great, and return false if this doesn't work. You just need to fix that. Okay, I hope that helps. If you still have any questions, let me know.